Hi, it's Toronto immigration lawyer Max Chaudhary. I wanted to discuss some factors affecting how fast your application to enter Canada can be, specifically for those people seeking to enter Canada as a study permit holder or as a visitor. Just by way of distinction, we're not talking about people who are TRV exempt. Such people are typically from more economically developed countries and need only apply for an ETA, or an electronic travel authorization, which may only take a few minutes and then they can board a plane. By contrast, the types of candidates we're discussing here are those from the TRV required countries, which are oftentimes the economically less developed countries, which in turn necessitate a formal application, and that formal application requires documentation and evidence. So for people who require a visitor visa, there are certain factors which may inherently cause delay or perhaps even refusal to those types of applicants. For example, if the applicant is a candidate who has a previous refusal, then this may affect the ability to be successful. And in such cases, those candidates may need to marshal new facts which may address the previous reasons for refusal, be they financial or the purpose of the visit or other factors. Similarly, a candidate who previously applied for a study visa and was refused may need to marshal more specific or more improved or updated evidence about things related to, for example, the funds or the purpose of study or the ties to their home country. Oftentimes, where you apply for a temporary status document is a factor. So if you're applying in a country that is not your country of citizenship, but may be a country where your status is more temporary, this may pose a challenge for the success of an application for temporary entry into Canada. The reason being is that this is a factor showing a weaker tie to your country of citizenship, the fact that you're already living in a third country other than your country of citizenship or in Canada. Similarly, when you apply for temporary status may be a factor. For example, if you're applying as a tourist for a visitor visa to Canada and you're visiting in February, an extremely cold month in most parts of Canada, you need to have a justification or a rationale. Otherwise, the purpose of visiting Canada in one of the coldest months may not make it logical to an officer to grant the temporary status as a visitor. Another factor relates to some more recent developments. For example, there is a distinction between applications which are filed after September 7th of 2021 as opposed to those before. And in some cases, it may be prudent to simply reapply for temporary status as a visitor after that date, because the government is indicating that such cases would be processed more quickly than ones previously filed prior to September 7th, 2021. There are some external factors which may not be directly within your control that affect the speed and chance of success for your application as a temporary resident, be it visitor or student. It's come to be known that certain visa offices have developed a more streamlined way of assessing applications. This more streamlined way affects what they're actually looking at. For example, some offices employ a method where only certain parts of a candidate's application are inputted into an Excel spreadsheet. And in fact, that summary of what's inputted into the Excel spreadsheet is not the whole application, and consequently the deciding officer may not even look at the entire application. This may affect the chance of success for such a temporary application, be it visitor or student. And this may in turn lead to a refusal, which may make it more difficult to apply in the future due to a kind of bad track record by having a previous refusal on file. Some candidates may use a Visa Application Center, or VFS, to assist them with the application. Sometimes such third parties interpolate or may actually omit certain documentation which may be beneficial for the chance of success for your application. And that failure to include relevant documents, for example, maybe passport copies of every page, or older passport copies which may have stamps in them showing travel history, may increase the chance of refusal. And again, this would lead to a kind of negative track record in your file, which would affect the chance of success in a subsequent future application. Some candidates can think strategically, perhaps candidates of certain financial means, about coming to Canada on two different methods. For example, either a study permit or on a visitor visa. For example, when deciding which type of application may be better, if there is a stronger purpose for one type of application over the other, then that would mean you would choose the one that is logical. So if there is a specific desire to visit a relative for a specific time, then that would militate in favor of applying for a visitor visa as opposed to a study permit application. Similarly, someone who may be inclined to apply for a visitor visa may be able to work remotely in Canada and not participate in the Canadian labor market and still be with a loved one who is in Canada. And in such a circumstance, they would be more inclined perhaps to apply for a visitor visa to Canada. Or similarly, if there is a short-term need such as to take care of a new baby, for example, a Canadian permanent resident wants their parent to visit, then that very short specific reason would militate in favor of applying for a visitor visa. And at the same time, there would be a strong rationale to justify the reason to be in Canada on a temporary basis. Oftentimes, however, people come to Canada for one purpose, such as visiting, and a new purpose or a new intention may materialize, such as to change to a study permit or to avail themselves of a method of acquiring permanent residence while in Canada, such as an in-Canada spousal application in some circumstances. If this occurs, it's important to bear in mind that renewing your temporary status inside of Canada is essential so as not to create a negative track record once you're inside of Canada. So some other relevant tips for ensuring a faster, more efficiently processed application would be specifically having documents that are cogent and relevant and specific. Keep in mind that a visitor visa application, as opposed to a temporary application to study, in some cases can be construed as more discretionary on the part of the officer. So specificity in terms of why you're visiting and how long would be highly desirable. This may necessitate more specific documentation about who you might be visiting, maybe a very specific invitation letter from somebody who you're visiting, maybe an invitation letter from somebody you're visiting, maybe an invitation letter from the potential host that you're visiting in Canada would be better in terms of specificity, such as duration of visit, etc. On the other hand, strengthening a study permit application would require external documentation, such as from the destination school in Canada you intend to study at, and similarly, evidence about the financial wherewithal that you have to support your potential funds in Canada. They may be your own funds or funds from a close relative. In other words, that may tie in documentation from a bank or a company that you or your relative runs or is employed at. And on the same token, the concept of a very specific plan of study and one that is logical would be more convincing to an officer than a vague plan that fails to address, for example, the need to study in Canada, where the potential course of study in Canada may already be available in a country outside of Canada, or maybe within your own country. So with specific documents that are cogent and consistent, the chance of success for a faster processing of a study permit or visitor visa would be in the offing. If you have issues applying for a temporary type of status, such as study permit or visitor visa, and need some guidance about the process, contact Chaudhary Law Office. Thank you.